Hi guys, today we're gonna model a water lily pond in Blender. So first of all, I'm gonna show you my render settings. This 3D model will be rendered in Eevee, and these are my render parameters. So I enabled ambient occlusion and bloom, increasing the threshold, and I also enabled screen space reflection with refraction enabled. Okay, all these parameters will be useful later when we render our project. So let's start by creating a petal. I press Shift A and I add a plane. Okay, now in edit mode, I can use Ctrl R to add new segments like this, and I can move them on the Y axis like this. Now I add more segments here horizontally. 3 is fine. But I need to flatten them on the y-axis, so I press S, Y, 0. Okay. Now I'm gonna shape my petal to make it look more realistic and natural. I add another loop of edges with Ctrl R. Okay, now we have our petal, and we just have to bend it and curve it until it looks more natural. So I go into the side view by pressing 3 on the keyboard, and I start rotating the vertices like this with proportional editing enabled, so it's easier. Okay, like this is perfect. Now what we need to do is, first of all, we are gonna add a subdivision surface modifier. And also we are gonna select the petal and press with the right mouse button and choose Shade Smooth to get rid of all these faces. Perfect. The last thing to do is add a solidify modifier here. Let's move it to first and increase the thickness. Okay, we're gonna add the thickness to our petal like this. And once you're satisfied with your petal, like this, I think it's fine. You have to apply it immediately. This is important because later we're gonna animate it by using shape keys, and when you have shape keys you can't apply your modifiers anymore. So I apply it. Okay. Okay, now before we create all the other petals, we need to add a shape key. So basically we're gonna animate this flower, which is closing and opening, okay? And we're gonna do it by using a shape key. What is a shape key? We can go here in Object Data Properties, okay? And in this panel you can see that we have no shape keys yet. So first of all, we're gonna press this plus button. And now we have a basis shape key, which is exactly the shape of our petal that you see right now. If I press this button again, we press a new shape key. Okay. And if, for example, I go into edit mode with this key selected and value to 1, and I change the shape, something like this, you see that if I change this value, it goes back to the basis form, but if I increase it again, I have my new shape. We're gonna animate this value, and we're gonna create the animation of a flower which is opening and then closing. So, actually, I'm gonna delete this key that I created, and I'm gonna press the plus button again. Okay, I bring this value to 1, and now I'm gonna reshape my petal and make it look like it's more closed and curved and more bended toward the inside of the flower. Okay. Okay, perfect. Now we can decrease this value again and go back to basis. And we can create all the other petals. So I bring this one up like this. Here we'll have the pistil of our flower, of our water lily. And now I'm gonna set the origin to the center of the axis. So I press Shift S, cursor toward origin. Okay, now we have our cursor here. And with the petals selected, I go here in Object, and I press Set Origin, Origin to 3D Cursor. Okay, the last thing that we need to do is add a driver. We are gonna use a driver to animate the closing shape key. So, in order to do it, I press Shift A and I add an empty object. You can choose the one that you prefer, but I'm gonna use a sphere. Okay. Basically, I'm gonna connect the shape key of my petal to this empty object, and when I move it, we are gonna animate all the petals together at once. So I press this petal and I go here in my new shape key, and I bring this value to 1, and then I press the right mouse button and I choose Add Driver. We change the type to average value, and in Object I choose Empty, which is my sphere. Okay, it closed the tab, but it's not a problem. You can just click again with the right mouse button and choose Edit Driver. Okay, so average value and empty. And now in here we are gonna select Z location, which means that it's gonna activate when we move our sphere on the Z axis. And workspace is fine. So now you can see that if I move my sphere, I activate the animation. Okay? Okay, now we have done everything that we need to do, and we can create all the other petals. So I just go here in the top view, and I'm gonna press Shift D to duplicate my petal, and then I'm gonna rotate it on the Z axis. So I press R and Z. Okay, now if I move my driver, all the petals move together. Now we can create all the other petals inside our water lilies. So I select all these ones and I duplicate them and move them up and also scale them a little bit. And now we need to rotate them to cover all the empty spaces here between the other petals. Now I'm gonna create the last layer of petals. Okay, the last thing to do to finish our water lily is to create the pistil. So I'm just gonna add with Shift A sphere, a simple sphere here. And we can already delete all these vertices that we won't need. Okay, and also I think I'm gonna scale it on the Z axis like this. Okay, now we're just gonna add some strands. You know, if you ever seen a water lily, you know that pistil has all these strands here, and I'm just gonna use a curve, and actually I'm gonna use a path. Okay, I rotate it and scale it a little, and here in the object data properties I go in the bevel panel and I increase the depth. Okay, now in case you don't know it, to scale vertices in a curve you just have to select it and press Alt S. You're gonna see me use Alt 1 because I changed my shortcuts, but the correct shortcut is Alt S. Okay, and now I'm just gonna move them very casually like this, and also I'm gonna set the origin of this curve here in the center so we can use the same trick that we used for the petals, which is Shift E and then rotation. Now we can create the leaves, so I just press Shift A and in this case I select a circle. I scale it a bit and then we go into edit mode. Okay, a circle is just this thing here with all these vertices, but we need to create a face, so we select all of them and we press F. Now with this face selected, I press I to insert. This last small face here, we can leave it like this, but I prefer to connect all the vertices. So I use the knife, I press K, and the trick is connect two vertices and then skip one here and go to the other one like this. Okay, usually a water lily leaf has a sort of cut here, so we can select all these faces here and simply delete them. And now here I think I'm gonna use the knife to connect these vertices with the center, and yeah. Now we can use a subdivision surface modifier and see how it looks like. And I think it looks really good. You can leave it like this, perfectly spherical, or you can use proportional editing. Okay, now I think I'm gonna assign a sort of thickness to this leaf too, like we did for the petals. But in this case, I'm not gonna use the solidify modifier and I'm just gonna extrude all the faces. So you can see both ways to do it. So I select all the vertices with A I deselect proportional editing and I press E and then move the new faces down, like this. Okay, now we have a perfect and really cute leaf and we can position it underneath our flower. Okay, now we can go on and create the water for our pond. So I create a plane here and scale it and place it underneath our water lily. Okay, and I add a subdivision surface modifier. We can apply it immediately, but I think I'm gonna add another one. Okay, and apply it too. Okay, like this, it should be fine. So basically we need many vertices because we need to move them and create some movement on this surface so that we can see the reflections like it is real water. So first of all, I'm gonna create some stones, some rocks here all around this pond. And I create a cube. And if we assign another subdivision surface modifier and we apply it, we already have something that looks like a rock in some way, but we can move the vertices a bit to create something more realistic. Okay, now we can create some waves on our water. We're gonna use a texture to create waves and also to animate the water later. So we select it and we go here in texture properties and we press new. And usually I choose clouds. Okay. Now we can assign a new modifier to our water. So I select this place. Okay. Now we have this funny weird effect, but we can choose here the texture that we have just created. Okay, and you see that he moves our vertices randomly like this, following the path of the texture that we added. Obviously we need to decrease the value. Okay, and also let's press right mouse button, shade smooth. And we probably need another subdivision surface modifier to smooth everything. Okay, I think I'm gonna decrease the size. We can also apply all transforms if we're having problems with this modifier. It can help. Okay, and obviously we can also move the vertices by ourselves like this if we need some more evident effect. Okay. Okay, good. Now we can skip to the funny part, which is the materials. So let's start with the flower, the water lily. I select a petal and I press new here in material properties. I am in the shading viewport. Okay. I create a new material. Okay. And for now, of course, it looks white. But now I'm gonna add some more nodes. To add a new node, you can press Shift A. Okay. Okay, these are the nodes that I'm gonna use for the material. I connect the color ramp to the base color, and I change this black material to a pink one. Now I connect the mapping, and then I connect the texture coordinate with the object parameter to the mapping. And also I'm gonna change the location. This mapping is a node that you can use to adjust, okay, your gradient as you need. So maybe my parameters, my values won't work for your 3D model for a lot of reasons, and you can just play with the values. Okay. Okay, now I select all the petals and I go here, I choose my material. And here, in this button, I choose copy material to select it. Perfect. Now for the pistil, I'm gonna use a very simple yellow material. I select every curve and the sphere, and I choose another material. I create another material. I choose a yellow color, and as I did before, I choose copy material to select it. Now I'm gonna do the leaves. Okay, so I choose one leaf like this. And I choose a green color. And we're also gonna add a gradient here. I can copy my nodes here by pressing copy and then Ctrl V. But of course, we won't use a pink, but a green here. And a darker shade of green. And for this one, I'm gonna use also another node, which is the gradient texture, because I want a spherical gradient. I reset all these values to 0. And here it is, my perfect gradient. Last thing to do, reduce the roughness, because we want it to be glossy. And reduce a bit the specularity too. And also, now I'm gonna add a sun, just so that you can see what I'm doing in a render view. I copied this material to all the leaves. Okay, for now I'm satisfied, and we can go on and create the material for the water. I create a new material with the water selected. And in this case, I'm gonna use a very bright blue, something like this. Now for the water, the first thing to do is to decrease the roughness, because of course we want it to be very glossy. Okay. And also we can change the IOR to 1.333. Okay. Now I'm gonna add 2 more nodes. Okay, because we want the water to be a little transparent. So I add the mix shader. Okay. And I use it to mix this node with a transparent node. I can increase this value a bit. For now, you can't see anything really, but it's just because we need to go here on the right in the panel of the material. And if we go here in settings, instead of opaque, we can choose alpha blend. And also here, no. And I also enable screen space reflections. Now we probably need some thickness to our water, so I select it. Okay, I go back in layout view and I select all the vertices. Okay, and then I press E and move them down to extrude. And now to flatten them, I just press SZ0. Okay, don't need this much thickness, so I reduce it a little. Okay, it looks good, but with the right lighting, it will look even better, trust me. Now we can go on and create the last material, which are the stones. Okay. For the stones, I'm just gonna use a simple gray material. With a shade of blue on it. Okay, all of our shaders are completed. Now I'm just gonna show you a few fixes that I did, and then I'm gonna show you how I created this lightning. So, for the water, I just changed the factor of my mix shader to 0.8. And also I added this plane down here. Okay, it's just a simple plane with the material. This is the code of the base color. I just find that it helps a bit. It gives this blue shade to the water, and it's cool to see it. And also I changed a little the material of the petal because I added this color here, this violet color here, and now we have this shade here, which is good looking, I think. Okay, now I'm gonna show you how I created lightning. When you use water materials, the lightning is everything, because of course it's the reflections that give you the impression of water. So basically my suggestion is use as many lights as you need. I used an area light here to illuminate my flower from the front, and these are the parameters. And another area light here with the violet color to illuminate the side, and then another area light here in the back. Here we have the sun, very important. Okay, it illuminates the whole scene, and I used this strength. But all the small reflections in the water, to do all these small reflections, I just used point lights. Okay, I just used small pond lights and put them very close to the water to create these nice effects. And also I changed the color of my world to something blue. Okay, our pond is completed and looks really fine, but to give that fairy atmosphere, we just need to add a small thing, which is the fireflies all around. So I press Shift A and I add a UV sphere. This is a very simple trick, but it always makes everything better, and I use it really everywhere. I create a small sphere and I add a new material. Here I choose a mission and I give a strength of something like this and yellow. Okay, we can also increase the strength. And now you can duplicate it everywhere. This is the final look of our fairy pond, and it's really atmospheric and I like it very much. But now we are just gonna see a few tricks to animate this scene. Okay, to animate the water, we can just animate the texture that we used for the displace modifier. So I go here in my timeline, okay, on frame 1, and we're gonna animate the size value. So I place my cursor here and I press I. Okay, now I've created a keyframe. Now I go at the end of my animation. You can choose the amount of frames that you want. And I'm gonna change my size. The more you increase this value, the faster, okay, the animation will be. And I select I again. You can see keyframes here, but if you want to see them, you can just go in Dop Sheet, and here deselect only show selected. Okay, now we can see our two keyframes, and let's see how it looks like. Okay, it goes a bit fast for me, so I'm gonna move the last frame. Okay, I'm gonna select both my frames and press the right mouse button and choose Interpolation Mode Linear. Like this, we don't have an acceleration, but a linear animation. Okay, if you want to slow down the animation, you can just keep going and move the last frame, like this. Or you can create another frame, of course. Okay, I think that this kind of animation looks really nice. I like that the water goes on my leaves. I'm just gonna move my flower so that it's not going, it's not touching the flower. Okay, perfect. Now we can animate the flower opening. So let's see where our sphere went. Okay, it's here. It's time to rename it or we're gonna lose it. Okay, our driver is here. And I go back to timeline And this is auto keying. It means that if it's enabled, every single time you move something, it will create a keyframe. So now that I move it, it automatically created a keyframe for my sphere, for my driver. And now I'm gonna go here and move it again. Okay, we can make it a little more faster and also move the frames. Okay, it looks fine, but we can give it a little more acceleration. So I place my cursor here at this frame where it's almost closing, and I press with the sphere selected, I press I and location, and I create a new keyframe. Now, if I move this keyframe to the left, I'm gonna accelerate the animation because I'm moving this this moment, okay, backward in time. Okay, the last thing to animate is the leaves, and we can also animate the small lights. For the leaves, we can just create a keyframe with location or location and rotation. Okay. And now if we change the menu here and we go into graphic editor, okay, here we can see all the axes where we can actually assign modifiers to our animation. Okay, our keyframe is here, and let's say that we want to move it, okay, on the X location. I'm gonna press N and I'm gonna add a modifier, noise. Okay, now if I press play, it does this fast and weird animation, but we can change the parameters here. If we increase the scale and we also decrease the strength, we should get something more natural. Like it's floating on the water. And we can actually do it for everything. We can also do it for our flower. I parented all my petals to this yellow sphere here, so I can just add a keyframe to my sphere. And if I go into X location, I can assign a noise modifier to it too. Good, really good, I think. And of course you can do the same thing with the small spheres too. I'm gonna show you how to do it with just one sphere, just so that you can understand how it works. Okay. I create a new frame and I go here. In this case we wanted to move on the Z axis, so I go in Z location and I add another noise modifier. Okay. I'm actually gonna move it up a bit. Okay, and now let's see how it works. Okay, I think it looks really good, but we also want it to move on the X and Z axis. So I go into the X axis and I add another noise modifier, adjusting the scale and strength. Okay, now the movement looks really natural, and you can do it to every light that you have in the scene. And this is the final animation. As you can see, everything is flying and floating, and it looks really magical and really beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have any questions, please ask me in the comment sections. And yeah, please subscribe and like my videos to let me know that you liked it and to help me going on with this project. And in case you recreate this 3D model, please tag me in the social media because I like to see what you do and to share it on my pages. So we're gonna see each other again in the next tutorial next week, and bye!